But anyways, how about we go back and do a stroll down back memory lane on your part. And if you could have a conversation with a young Jordan Peterson, and he's over there back at the heart of the mighty Peace region in Fairview, northern Alberta, Canada. He's 18, 19, still, I mean, he's guiding the steering wheels of life. He has the pebbles and the boulders in his shoes. What advice would you give him?
Well, my wife and I have talked about this a fair bit, and one of the things I've known her since she was 8, literally since she was 8, so 60 years? No, she's not 68. Now I'm in real trouble. 55 years, a long time. And it would have been better had we got married earlier. Now,
you tried a lot, by the way. Weren't you insistent? But
not insistent enough.
All right.
Or not effectively insistent.
What does
or not
that mean?
Committed enough. Well, the first time I asked her to marry me, I think I was 23. And I was still either more interested in or unable to get past the kind of the intense social life I had with my friends and the partying that went along with that. I mean, heavy drinking was an art form in northern Alberta, that's for sure. And I was a master of that art form.
All right.
And so...
You no longer drink, right?
No, I haven't.
Not at all.
I really haven't drank since I was 27. I quit. I started again briefly when I was 50, when my kids left home, because I thought I could probably take a drink now and then.
But
and so,
pardon my pardon my interruption.
Yeah.
No, just I mean, many subjects here. Talking back to the original younger version of yourself.
Yeah.
Your marriage. You were talking about your marriage, correct?
Yes. Well, the advice would have been, it would have been better to get married to Tammy earlier. But I would have had to. And why didn't that happen? I didn't mature fast enough.
Yep.
So did she? Probably. If I would have had my act together when I was 23. She probably would have married me then. So, and why is that a problem? Well, if you love someone, why wouldn't you want to spend the best part of your youth with them? And so, now she was a little older than me because she was in my class, and so I had to play some catch up on the maturation front, and women mature faster than men, and so that also complicated it. But I had some characterological inadequacies that might have been rectified earlier, and then maybe we would have had more kids too, which would have been good, because we have 2 kids, and that's okay. And I have 4 grandkids now, but both her and I agree that had we started earlier, we would have had more kids.
So my bad. I only mentioned Scarlett and Elliot.
Yeah, well,
what were the other ones?
Shirley,
Shirley,
another son, a daughter of my son, and George, who's the newest one, who is my daughter Michaela's newest child. And
all right. So, Dr. Peterson, as we move to the end of this fascinating conversation, when I was digging through your vast body of work in preparation for this interview, I came across the famous letter you wrote to your father back in November 1986. You were just 25 by then, if I'm not mistaken. And there you spell out very clearly your political disillusionment that you were feeling at the time, particularly. And you wrote then, and I quote, "I looked for what I wanted to find where it was obvious to everyone it would be, in politics and in political science, in the study of group behavior. This took up the years I spent involved with the NDP, which is the major center-left party in Canada, and in studying political science until I learned that the application of a system of thought I like socialism, or any other ism for that matter, to a problem and solving that problem were not the same thing. In the former case, you have someone who is not you to blame, the rich, the Americans, the white people, the government, the system, whatever, as long as it is someone else." So my question is, your skepticism to the mundane reality of politics, which perhaps brings out the worst in you in order to make concessions and agreements that are disaligned with your own ideas for the world. This early realization that you had, very, impulsed by Orwell, your studies of Orwell, in blaming external entities for, which doesn't equate to actually solving the issues. My question is, has this political disillusionment followed you your whole life? Or is there any conceivable scenario you would considering a run for perhaps Canadian Prime Minister? Because I'm sure you have a hell of a lot of
I wouldn't say it's disillusionment exactly.
So please correct the record.
Because it's not appropriate to be cynically disillusioned with politics. And the reason for that is, well, it's the classic gospel conception. You have to render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and unto God what is God's. And Caesar's part has its role, and so does God's. And I was struggling with that when I wrote that letter. What I came to understand was that the issues that most deeply concerned me weren't political, they were spiritual or psychological. Psychological first, say, then spiritual above that. And so I was looking for a spiritual solution, so to speak, in the political, and that was inappropriate. And I came to realize that as I continued to study and then moved into clinical psychology and then beyond that, let's say. So what's the upshot of that? That doesn't mean that the political has no point and no purpose, and it doesn't mean that you're allowed to be counterproductively cynical about the political. Okay, now you ask me a more concrete question. Would I ever consider a run at a political position?
I'm sure you've
I've considered it continually, and every time I've considered it, I've decided that what I was already doing was more useful than what I could do on that front, and that hasn't changed. And so I talk to political figures constantly, and I consider political matters, but that isn't my primary focus of concern, and it shouldn't be. In fact, I can tell too, even practically speaking, when I become too political, when I'm tempted, let's say, to become too political, then the effectiveness of what I'm doing wanes rapidly. That isn't why people are interested in the things that I'm studying. And that's not primarily why I'm interested in them. I'm interested in, well, I was interested right from the beginning in the problem of evil. And I thought for a while that that was a political problem. And there are political manifestations of evil, obviously, but evil is not a political problem. It's a metaphysical problem. It's a theological problem. It's a spiritual problem. And it's an individual problem. And, you know, the antithesis to that finding fault in the place of others, the group, the Americans, the white people, let's say, the privileged, the powerful, that's an abdication of a certain kind of deep responsibility. So Christ as the Savior is the man who takes the sins of the world upon himself. Okay, and so what does that mean? Well, Dostoevsky figured this out. He understood very clearly that that's what people are called upon to do. What's the problem with the world? Fundamentally, you're not everything you could be. That's the problem, truly. And until you sort that out, you should leave other people the hell alone. Now, that doesn't mean you're not called upon to protect your family or any of those things, but it's what Christ is referring to in the Gospels when he tells people to take the dust speck out of their eye. No, the log out of their eye, the beam out of their eye, instead of being concerned with the dust speck in their enemy's eye. And see, the battle between good and evil in the Judeo-Christian conception is transformed into something that's played out on the public stage into a drama that plays out in the heart. And so you constrain evil in the world most effectively. It's the only way of doing it, by constraining its expression in your own soul. And you do that locally, like you do that by putting into order the relationship that you have with yourself, with your wife, with your children, with your parents, with your neighbors. That's where you do it. And it's pride that stops people from doing it, because they think that they want to play a dramatic role on the public stage, and they despise the opportunities to establish order that are right at hand. And you might say, well, my family's so screwed up that nothing I could do would help. And I would say, what that fundamentally indicates is that you have a lot to learn and that you have a lot of opportunity in front of you on that front. It doesn't mean it'll be easy, but That's still the proper domain of concern. And the world is constituted so that people don't understand this, but it's true. All the possibility that there is right in front of you. That's literally the case. It's a very daunting thing to understand. And that's true for everyone. And you think, well, there are these people of privilege and power who have far more opportunity than I do. It's like Christ is born in a manger for a reason.
Yep.
Right? And the reason is that you have the world. You don't know this, but you have the world at your fingertips. And part of what that means is that what you do matters. The local things you do matter way more than you think. And that's a really positive message, because it means that I don't have any more opportunity for adventure than you have. And that's the same for everyone you meet.
Yep.
And so that's a world of abundance, that's for sure. Infinite adventure for everyone. That's the central nature of the world, truly. And it's right there. You might be too blind to see it. That's what Christ says too. The kingdom of heaven is spread upon the earth, but men will not see it.
Right? All right. And I mean, we're short on time, Dr. Peterson, but I'm going to go for a final question here, perhaps a little multi-pronged, but I couldn't help myself but ask you this final question, because you draw extensively on the hero archetype, and with perhaps mirroring characters like Moses and Jonah, which I'm sure you mentioned on your upcoming book. A lot of young people, I'm only 29, and I see this as a communicator myself these days. The crisis in terms of free speech in Brazil is quite deep and unsettling, like it is in North America. And with voices perhaps like yours and many in Brazil who are facing suppression and cancellation, the disillusionment, the nihilism, the despair, the lack of moral and heroic references for young people these days. We're talking about what you've once called milquetoast leadership coming from above, with figures like Trudeau, who you've called a sanctimonious twerp at one point, and the Jacinda Ardens of the world, the Emmanuel Macrons of the world, the Joe Bidens of the world, if you will. I mean, based on all of that, what are the attributes of a hero that you think are most lacking in contemporary leaders, and who should young men look for guidance for them to turn from what I would call the surfer boys of today into the lumberjacks of tomorrow?
Well, I would say, so Christ says in the Gospels, he says something like, I am the truth and the way and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me. Okay, so what does that mean, to come to the Father? It means to grow up. It means to mature.
Yep.
Okay, how do you do that? By sacrificing your idiot self, your idiot, immature self. How do you do that? By finding your way, by seeking, right? Knock and the door will open. Seek, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. That's the way, and you have to want that, to seek, and you can find that. How do you ensure that the way that you find is the proper way? You ensure that by doing everything you can to live in the truth, because otherwise you can't rely on yourself as a wayfinder. And so, and the simplest of all those, I would say, is likely to seek the truth. And the simplest way to do that is to start to stop the lying. And this is, I think, something that's there for everyone. You may not know how to tell the truth, because who knows how to tell the truth? But you do know that there are some times when you act falsely or you lie. You could stop that. Everyone can stop that. And what happens, that's how you get the beam out of your eye. You remove a lie and you can see a little more clearly, and then you see another one to remove and you can see a little more clearly. And that will illuminate the way, and that will bring you to the Father. That's how life works. That's the truth. So, and to top it off, there isn't anything that you can do that's more exciting than that. And there isn't anything you can do, and this is a good thing for young men to know, young women too. There's nothing you can do that will make you more attractive to other people than that. And so if you're looking for a mate, which you are, obviously, then that's the thing to do. And because that'll make the best out of you. You know, people say you should be yourself. And that's often twisted in a kind of hedonistic way. You should just do what you want to do. If you were your deepest self, if you were truly your deepest self, people would be lining up to play with you, right?